If they've hurt you ever before, someone don't break your heart. Sorry. If someone has ever broken your heart before, right? Come, you're not alone. Let me tell you a story. You see this guy here? His name is David. You see this other guy here? His name is Ahithophel. And they are best friends. And not just that, Ahithophel is David's chief military advisor. Nearly all the fights that David went to, fought and won, most of them are credited to the prophetic strategies that Ahithophel gave him. Now, this is how that relationship went south. Courtesy of David. Now, Ahithophel is Eliam's father. All right? And now, Eliam is the father of Bathsheba. Bathsheba is the wife of Uriah. Uriah is one of the foot soldiers of David. The Bible described him even as one of the mighty men of David. So when David had even retired from war, Uriah was still one of the armies that used to go to fight battles for David. And then in one of those periods where they go to fight, David sleeps with the guy's wife and goes on to kill the guy, just to keep the secret and also to take the wife. If you've ever read somewhere in the Bible, or you went to church and a preacher was saying, David never lost a battle, he fought all the wars, he won all the wars, this was the guy responsible. He has been with David nearly all of David's life, was present in all his wars, all his fights, all his battles. The description Bible gave this guy, Ahithophel, is that he is like God's oracle. If he says a thing and you go to ask God and God is to speak to you directly, both of them will be mirror image, exactly the same. Now, what does David do in return to this guy who has been faithful, loyal, helpful all his life? David goes and sleeps with Ahithophel's granddaughter. He doesn't stop there. He kills the lady's husband, leaving the children as orphans. Ahithophel is distraught, he's disappointed, he's heartbroken. You would expect that the person who would suffer and go through a miserable experience would be David. But no, the person who had a miserable outcome from that experience was Ahithophel. And this is the build-up. For every time we go through hurt, people will offend us, people will attack us, people say negative things about us. You've done so much good for people, and they go the other way around and hurt you in ways you didn't expect. If you don't heal fast from that experience, the thing that they started will end up hurting you even more, both your health and also in your life, literally. So, Ahithophel is in the pain of this experience for so many years. Not 1 year, not 2 years. Now, he kept waiting and biding his time, waiting for the right opportunity to strike. And the opportunity came. If you ever wondered, why did you ever read that Ahithophel joined Absalom, David's enemy, anyway, his son, right? To try to kill David and to take over the throne. You want to hear the story today. And this is the story of pain, of disappointment, of heartbreak. And it is the world we live in. But history has shown that those who don't heal and heal fast become victims of the experiences that they go through. It doesn't matter whether they were right or they were wrong. I will share this story with you and so many other stories. But if you've watched up until this point, somewhere within the video, I'll be sharing 4 things I have learned on how to deal with pain, hurt, betrayal, disappointments, and maybe it will work for you. Not maybe, I'm sure it will work for you because they're not theories, it's not textbook knowledge. There are real experiences and things I've gone through. If I share my story, maybe I will share some of my stories just so you get how much this is a real. Let's just leave it at that. I'll just share some of my stories. And out of the 4 things I'll be sharing with you, all of them are amazing, right? But the 4th one is my favorite. And every time I've used it or I've trained people to use it or I've shared it with people, the testimonies are always mind-blowing. It will help you every single time. It doesn't matter the level of pain people put you through. You see yourself snap out of it in a split of a second. All right. So Now, let's get back to David and Ahithophel's story. All right. I know you want to hear it. We've been itching and we've kept that for a long time. Now, remember, Ahithophel had been waiting for the right opportunity to get his vengeance on David for what David did to his family, right? Now, Absalom, David's son, starts to have a severe conflict with his dad. It became so bad, he decided to take his father out and become the new king of Israel. The opportunity was perfect for Ahithophel. So Ahithophel, while David is running, all right, decomes to Absalom. So all these years he's been with David. They come to courts together, they come to the king's court together, they do things together, but the pain was inside, boiling and waiting. The opportunity came, Ahithophel took it. He moves to Absalom, and then we'll begin to see how that frustration begins to pour out. Absalom asks him, I'm surprised to see you here. Are you not my dad's chief strategist? I mean, how will my dad survive without you? Ahithophel says, we all know that the hand of God is with you. All right? That was not correct. He knew clearly what he was doing. It was the opportunity to revenge and to pour out the bitterness that has been in his heart for a long time. So what does he do? Remember how that David was at the rooftop when he saw Bathsheba having her bath and then invited the young lady who he had an affair with. Whether they went indoors or whether they stayed at the rooftop, we're not told. But my guess is it was at the rooftop, because we see that in the counsel that Ahithophel begins to give to Absalom. He says the first thing you need to do is to establish yourself as the authority in the land. And how you do that is to defile your father. And how do you do that? Go to the king's palace and stay at the rooftop and take one of the king's choicest concubines and sleep with the woman at the rooftop there. Let it be news around the entire Israel what you did. And it will instantly establish you as the new authority, and the heart of the people will move from your father and move to you. Now, when you look at that, it's very perfectly, or let's say it perfectly agrees with what happened to Bathsheba, who is Ahithophel's granddaughter. And then he is repeating that same experience to revenge the same hurt, the same pain that David put him through. But it didn't stop there, right? Because that's the evil with pain and hurt. It will build up and never cease until it destroys one person. And most often, the person holding the fire is one who is burnt. And that was how Ahithophel got burnt. Now, Absalom is also looking for counsel on how to literally take out his father and to kill him literally and become the king of the land. So he begins to ask for advice. So he calls Ahithophel, knowing his background and his pedigree, and says, how do we go about my dad and to kill him? And then Ahithophel gives a very simple, straightforward strategy. Say, your dad right now is in distress. He's so afraid. If we pursue him right now, we'll get him, we'll kill him, you become king. Now, it looks like a very funny strategy. But don't forget, Ahithophel, his counsel, the Bible describes it as though one inquired from the mouth of God himself. So one other guy that David sent into the camp of Absalom was also present, who is also notably David's friend. So Absalom calls the guy and says, okay, this situation we're in right now, we want to take over. What do you advise? The guy, because he was planted by David with a simple mission, make sure whatever Ahithophel tells this guy, that they don't execute it. So the first thing the guy asked is, what did Ahithophel tell you to do? And then Absalom tells, Ahithophel says we should go after my dad right now. That all the men who are with him will flee and will take him, and that's how we'll become king. The guy laughed and said, hi, for the very first time, Ahithophel has said things that is It's as though he's not the one talking. Don't you know your dad? You don't know David, mighty man of war? You don't know he's a mighty man. One, as one man, killed 2 lions. One had his legs trapped in fetters. He fought till the knife literally clung to his hands. 3, went to the garrison of the Philistines and destroyed an entire army to just fetch water for David to drink. You think this kind of caliber of men will simply run away because one teenager who wants to become king is rallying a simple army after him? So don't listen to that guy. This is just my own opinion, all right? I don't think your dad will run. Right now, I believe David is far away from his armies. He's waiting somewhere, waiting for you to make this move. And then once you make that move, he's going to make another move and you will be dead. And the moment he gave that counsel, the Bible said that Absalom reasoned it and it made a lot of sense. And then he decided to go with that counsel. The moment he made that move, Ahithophel knew that was the end. Everybody in this mission would die. Why? He knows his counsel doesn't fall on the ground. Let me not bore you with the whole story. The end result is that Ahithophel died a miserable death. He committed suicide. And that was the end of a man whose pedigree is unquestionable, whose testimony is clean. As a matter of fact, who in this circumstance was the one who was offended and was the one who was betrayed. But it's unbelievable that life just moved on. All right? In fact, life did not just even move on. David even took advantage or benefited from the bloodline of Ahithophel. Now, this is my hypothesis. Whenever people are good in anything, it's beyond just a gift that is just there. It is something that runs in them. It's very scarce to see a very brilliant, genius parent and their children don't turn out as the same. So just somehow, this gifting of God that is in Ahithophel is definitely in his granddaughter, Bathsheba. So it is no surprise to me that Solomon comes out and becomes the wisest man to have ever lived. Now, the Bible described that he wrote more than 1,000 music albums, went into taxonomy, right? And began to classify plants and animals and all kinds of sciences he went into. He wrote over 10,000 proverbs. In fact, the Bible says of all the wise men in the East at that time, magicians, astrologers, mathematicians, every single one of them were coming to the feet of Solomon to learn wisdom. But it didn't even just end there. Our Jesus is traced to that particular lineage. So you almost think that when people hurt you, that God is angry with them and God will fight them and God will show them pepper and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work that way. There is a wisdom to handle offense. As a matter of fact, Jesus said that offenses must surely come. So it's not a question of will I be offended? You will be offended. People will do things that will hurt you. Some of my stories I'm not even yet ready to even share, but people do things that you just imagine, like, how on earth is this possible? I've housed people for a particular 2 years, and then when I needed them the most, they backed out. I've given people platforms to do some incredible things, and when the slightest chance came for them to say thank you, they didn't say it. It hurt me so much. I began to look through scripture because I'm a person who believes that the Bible is the best insight for business and leadership exploits. So whenever I want to look through things, the mirror or the lens I put to view those circumstances are scriptures. Scriptures is a script for our lives. All right. Some people may not hold that belief, but the Bible says that the word of God has been tried 7 times. In essence, for God to come up with any theory, he has subjected it to a research process and arrived at every singular decision he puts out there as a law in his book for all of us. And not just us, including himself. The Bible says that God is subject to his word. Because as a scientist, if you carry out a research and then you come out with a result, you don't argue it, you have to agree with it. It may not be what you thought it should be, but whatever you finally see as the outcome, that is what it is. So I began to look through the lens of scriptures to see what does the Bible say about human relationship? And it shocked me. God never anywhere told us to do good to people because people will do good to us. Not a single place. All right? So now let's even talk a little about another story, because this is not a one-off. There are numerous. The Absalom that we talked about, what was his story? How did he come to a point of bitterness to even want to kill his dad? All right? We're building it a little. From there, we get to how this applies to you. Practical strategies to handle offenses and deal with people. Whether you're a leader, people have left you, people have hurt you, or you are a follower and your leaders have offended you, or your friends have betrayed you, or even family members. It's terrible. Now, because I'm a pastor, I'm a medical doctor, I'm a leadership consultant. All the offices I operate requires people confiding in me and sharing stories with me. Stories of the organizations, of the employees, of their staff, of their superiors, of their juniors, or stories of what's going on in their life and needing spiritual counsel, or things going on in their life medically and they need me to make it peace. So my ears have heard a lot. Sometimes I just want to shut it. But it all boils down to the same thing. So this particular lady shared a story. Now imagine you are walking upstairs to your family house, and then while you get up the stairs, just before you walk into the sitting room, you are hearing your siblings laughing with your mom, and then you listen closely. For you to even be listening closely, because you already have some mistrust on the relationship people have. She was eavesdropping to know what were they laughing about, and they were laughing at her. She thinks she will come back from Europe and come and also do this and do that and do that. She's seeing what life is showing her now. These are the siblings, not step siblings. These are her sisters and her mom laughing at her. And then she opens the door and then goes in, hey, and everyone begins to laugh. Hey, you're back. Ha. She calls me that evening. She was in deep pain. She was broken. How can family be like this? But this is it. It's reality. And if she doesn't know how to handle that experience, she will be the one that will suffer. So, let me tell you the story of another guy, the Absalom. Absalom is David's eldest son. All right? Or something like that. Now, but I think his eldest son. Now, he is the prince with great reputation. Whenever David is not around, he's the one people come to. In fact, at a particular time when David was not in a condition to really attend to people, Absalom held the throne, attending to people, giving counsel, giving judgments. All right? But something happened. He has a sister, very pretty lady. If the Bible says someone is beautiful, the person is beautiful. Now, the girl's name was Tamar. All right? And Tamar was Absalom's kid sister. Beautiful girl, princess. Now, David had multiple wives. So one of his wives had a son called Ammon. And Ammon was so in love with his stepsister, Tamar. That is the sister to Absalom. So you could imagine how beautiful someone is that the stepbrother just can't take his eyes off the lady, right? So that's how beautiful Tamar was. So Ammon deceived Tamar, lured her to his room, claiming that he was sick, asking that he just wants the sister to come and attend to him and blah, blah, blah. And then Tamar prepares a meal, comes to attend to his stepbrother who was ill. The guy locks the door and forcefully sleeps with her. And the thing didn't go down well with Absalom. Now, Absalom waited for his father David to do something about it. David did not. It went from weeks to months. In fact, David even did the much he could to make sure the news didn't go out. The pain was just unbearable for Absalom. He felt disrespected. He felt, nothing is as terrible as conflict between step siblings. The competition between the family lines from this wife, from the other wife. That's why when I read about Jacob, I just have so much respect for the guy. Being able to keep 12 siblings together. Well, not 12 anyway, because they sold Joseph. But like even succeeding in having children from 4 women and keeping them together, it was a miracle. All right. So now, what goes on? Absalom waits 2 years later. Everyone thinks he has forgotten, but he hasn't. The pain is boiling on the inside. And what happens? He calls for a birthday party and decides to invite all his siblings, direct and indirect, the step siblings and his own blood siblings. And everyone shows up. In the birthday party, the guy kills his stepbrother Ammon in cold blood. And it was devastating. But David also didn't do anything about it. And that pain that Absalom had, which he felt, maybe by the time I kill this guy, it will even give me room to feel good. He didn't get it. Because that's not how to heal from hurt. That's not how to heal from pain. So, what happened next? He begins to feel, right now, I must have lost favor with my dad, the king. And perhaps I may no longer be his preferred choice for the throne. So the guy decides to take the throne by force. The pain is still present. The hurt is still present. It has built from anger to pain to animosity to wrath. All right. So, and then to indignation. So those build up of unattended hurts, pains, disappointments, and betrayals will keep damaging the person who is a victim of the experience until he learns how to deal with it. How do you allow pain to build up to a point where you decide to take out your dad? So in the process, you know the rest of the story. Let me not bore you with that. He had a miserable death. That was then how he had a coalition with Ahithophel, because that was opportunity for Ahithophel, and then he took it. Now, he didn't take the counsel of Ahithophel. Ahithophel knew you must die, right? Because this is what God would do if God is in this situation. For you guys not doing it, I know the consequence once David returns, because we are all dead. So let me just go and die first. All right, so now the Bible said that Ahithophel, or what's his name, the Absalom, was on a horse, fleeing from the battle when he was now fighting with the army that David had set against his own army, even though David had given a clear instruction that nobody should kill Absalom. All right, but just somehow that instruction did not go on. Why? Because another person who was also hurting took that as an opportunity to also mess up David's life and also kill the guy who was David's son. His name was Joab. What's Joab's story? When you look at all of this, you just see how these things all link up and all connect. But all these people who were being haughty and offended towards David, all of them died. David remained. Now, Joab is David's chief of army staff. All right. Now, sometime years ago, when the house of Saul and the house of David were having conflict, now the Bible said that there was a battle set up, and Abner, who is the chief of army staff for Saul, who at the time was the king of Israel, when they were fleeing from battle from the armies of David, the brother of Joab was pursuing Abner. And Abner turned to him and said, I know you run so fast. In the whole country, everyone knows you are the Usain Bolt. But technical fight, I'm better than you. If we meet in combat, I will kill you. And I don't want to kill you. So please go back. He would say this and he will continue running. And the young boy, who is Joab's brother, will continue pursuing after the Abner guy. He continued until he finally caught up with the guy and they had to fight. If I'm stronger than you and you're trying to kill me, I'm not going to surrender for the sake of peace. I will defend myself. If defending myself would not work, I'll rather preserve my life than let you kill me. That was the philosophy of Abner. So Abner eventually killed this guy. and the pain went straight to Joab. Years later, Saul is dead, and then Abner comes to David and says, Saul is dead. The whole Israel knows that God anointed you as king, but it is betrayal for me to have left my master when he was alive. But now that he's dead, do you mind? I would like to serve under your leadership. David tells him, I've forgiven you, but you have to swear you've not come here to hurt me. The guy said nothing. So David takes Abner and takes him to Joab and introduces him and says, don't do anything to this guy. What happened years ago between your brother and him was during the time of war. We're in the time of peace. You must let go. Joab let go. Rather, Abner thought that Joab let go. But then, one evening, Joab invited Abner for a hangout. As the guy showed up just to take a hug, took his knife, thrust through his tummy, tore his entire bowels, and killed him like that. But you would think that he had won. Joab ended up in a miserable death. So, when you look at the stories, every single one of them, numerous, right? You come to find out that the person who is hurting but doesn't learn how to come out of that hurtful experience will end up destroy his health. I don't even want to go into the medical aspect because you mess up your hormones, right? But also mess up his life and his purpose on earth. Now, history had it that Brutus had some disagreements with Julius Caesar. And then for something he felt he didn't do the way he wanted it, the pain, the frustration, the bitterness built up. And then he killed Julius Caesar, connived with the Senate. That's what popular history says. But you'd almost think that the guy had won. Ultimately, Brutus died from suicide. He killed himself. He had a miserable death. So, if you're a student of history, you realize that nobody who has allowed hurt, pain, betrayal to remain in their hearts have ever gone on to live a successful life. Now, John the Baptist had proclaimed Jesus to be the Son of God. Now he's in prison. He's waiting for Jesus to come to do something about it. Now he waited. Jesus wasn't showing up. He sent his disciples to go to Jesus and say, ask Jesus, are you the one or should we expect another? And then the response Jesus gave showed us what was going on in the heart of John the Baptist. When the guys had gone, Jesus said to the people, blessed is anyone who is not offended in me. All right. The end result is that this guy who is John the Baptist, as described by Jesus, he said of all born of women, whether David, Solomon, Moses, any single being born up until the arrival of Jesus, none of them is as powerful, none of them is as anointed as John the Baptist. In fact, from his mother's womb, he was filled with the Holy Spirit. He's the only Old Testament prophet who didn't just have the Spirit upon him, he had the Spirit within him from infancy. All right? Miracles, signs, and wonders from birth up until his miserable death. His head was literally chopped off by a little girl, or rather on a little girl's request. And that's what happens when offense builds up in a person's heart. And there are many reasons that this can happen. All right? But it's endless. We may not be able to say all of them. But I'll just give you a few things from these experiences we've shared, and you will see how to deal with hurt, with pain, with disappointment, when people do things to you that you never expected them to do. All right? Now, if you look at the story of Lot, you would ever imagine, or you just imagine, why did Lot, when things began to go out of hands for him, why didn't he return back to Abraham? Remember the story. The Bible said that when they had the arrangement, Abraham asked him, choose anywhere. And if you're listening to this, I want to share this with you. If your superior, who has been a blessing to you, who have set you up, ever create a platform and tells you, choose, let me take the other, don't be foolish to choose. All right? It's a long conversation and I will not go into that. All right. But the Bible said he chose the green part of the land. I mean, literally, it is Abraham, go and die. But then what makes a person is inside the person. It's not outside the person. If you want to choose the green land, if you're not green inside, you will dry. Eventually, that was what happened. All right. Now, the Bible says that when Abraham was negotiating with God as to how many persons, if God should find in Sodom and Gomorrah, he wouldn't destroy the place. They stopped at 10. Now, this is the assessment that I have. Now, the Bible said that the men of Abraham and the men of Lot were beginning to have contentions, and the ground and the space where they shared was no longer enough for them. The animals were too much, the men were too much. Now we know the number that Abraham had. He had 300 men, servants who were in his house, who were working. So 300 cannot be contending with 20. 300 can also not be contending with 50. There has to be a number that looks similar for contentions to exist. Let's say 100 minimum. So the number of men who were with Lot, by virtue of association, he has learned how to build wealth and influence people being under Abraham. Let's say he had 100 men. Then he had 2 daughters. Those 2 daughters had 2 husbands, right? That's 4. And then Lot himself 5, his wife 6, plus 100 men. So let's say 106 men moved to Sodom and Gomorrah. So when Abraham was negotiating with God, how many should I find and I wouldn't destroy the land, right? Abraham stopped at 10. His assumption is, okay, there's 6 already in the house of Lot. Let's say even if Lot should lose men, he should have up to 10 men left. So we're talking about 16. So God entered Gomorrah. But guess what? That wasn't what happened. When God got there, the angels got there, they saw only 6 guys who were righteous, in quotes. And the city was destroyed. The question is, why did Lot not run back to his uncle Abraham? Remember, the first time he was also in distress, the person who went to save him was Abraham. And went and fought, recovered everything, all his men, all his gold, all his animals, all his family, and gave it back to him. But just somehow, when a person feels also, because this betrayal is not only about when you betray people, it's not only about when people betray you, when people hurt you, when people offend you. It could also be when you feel that you have hurt people, that you have betrayed people, that you have disappointed people. Either ways, the outcome are the same if you don't learn how to heal and heal fast. Now, not having the face to return back to Abraham, that was how he ended up in a miserable life. In fact, his 2 daughters slept with him, and that became the beginning of incest, as we have it in the Bible. And it's ridiculous. So you even see the case of Judas Iscariot. Now, Judas had such a very terrible experience for betraying Jesus, but he didn't learn how to come out of that place. If Judas had found a way to wait till Jesus stays on the cross and says it is finished, the guy is cleansed. But just somehow, not knowing how to handle hurt that people gave you or hurt that you gave people will create a dangerous outcome for your life. Everybody in history, whether in the Bible or in the regular history materials we have, who have ever gone through pain and didn't heal from that pain, have always been a victim of their experiences. And it doesn't matter who was right or who was wrong. And it's not a place of, God should do something about it. It is wisdom to know what to do. In fact, from my experience so far, after I had a friend who died from an experience I consider a leadership error, I looked back, I saw the pains he went through, the stories he shared with me, and I said, wow, this is life. Life is not about who is right or wrong. That's why the Bible said that wisdom is the principal thing. It's not, wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing. If you don't have the wisdom to deal with life, if you want to have the best intentions, be a good person, be a loyal person, be a loving person, if you don't have wisdom, you'll be a victim. So this is wisdom on how to deal with hurt. All right. Number one, learn how to deal with those things early. You must learn to confront people. All right. And when we mean confront, we don't mean just go and fight and go and badge on people, but approach and have that conversation. Someone did something to me that I felt was so unimaginable. I mean, I was so pained. I created a platform that in a way changed the person's life, but the person did not in any way show appreciation verbally or otherwise. I was so distraught about it. And one day I was praying, and the Holy Spirit put it in my heart and said, go have the conversation with the person. So I approached, and then we had that difficult conversation. And when I left that place, I felt more mature. I felt more in control of my environment. I felt more in charge of my emotions. And from that day, I realized that the most important component in dealing with hurt and offenses is learning to go have that conversation with that person. It's very important. It's extremely, extremely important. Extremely important. All right? Sometimes when you go to have that conversation, you will get the other person's perspective and you realize that the matter was not really as you thought that it used to be or that you thought it was. You know, this group of students, one set has been taught so much about convex. So they draw a C, and referring to the external surface, they teach them convex. That is a convex lens. All right. Then, to the other group of students, they taught them about concave, and then with the same C. So when they drew the C, they made reference to the inner part and told them as the C goes this way, this inner part is concave. So these two set of people go into life, and then they begin to argue, this is convex, this is concave, this is convex, this is concave. But in just such a situation, both of them are correct. It is both concave and it is also convex. But just depending on where you're standing and looking at it. So these two guys were arguing, two drunk guys. So one drank like 5 bottles of beer and then the other one drank 6. So this guy came, was looking somewhere up and said, why is the sun out this night? So the other guy came and asked him, what are you pointing up to? He said, see the sun. Isn't it just so hot this night? The guy said, no, that is not the sun, that is the moon. That's the moon, that's not the sun. So they began to argue, quarrel, argue. Then a third guy who drank like 4 crates showed up and then met both of them at the junction arguing. And then asked them, what are you arguing about? So they said, this guy said that this is the sun. The other one said, but I say it's the moon. So that guy said, let me solve the puzzle for you people. So he came by this side, he looked at it. He said, wait, he came to this side, he looked at it. He said that the truth is that when you stand from here and look at this thing, that is the sun. But if you come from this side and look at it, it's the moon. But that the real perspective is where he's standing from. That when you looked up, it's the star that he's seeing. and it's so funny, but yes, it draws attention to how perspective can be corrected if you listen to the other person's opinion or listen to the other person's side of the story. It may be what you were told the person said. It may also be what you literally heard the person say. But maybe you didn't hear the opening statement, you just heard a continuation. All right? Just somehow listening to the other person to speak may change your perspective. Just maybe. There's another story about a guy who got into the train with the 2 kids. All right? And then in an evening, people are also in the train and the kids are jumping everywhere and all making noise. And their dad was sitting down somewhere quietly and with his head bent as though he's just resting. Then one guy who was reading for an exam was there in the same train, and it is not a 5 minutes drop and speak, it was a lengthy 2 hours move. So he waited for the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, hoping that the noise would stop, but the kids continued being kids. So when he couldn't take it anymore, he walked up to the kid's dad and asked the man, don't you mind that the kids are making a lot of noise? Oh, and then the man just sounded like, oh, so I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then just that I just lost my wife this evening and we're heading to the hospital to see her corpse, and the kids are not even aware that their mom is dead. Instantly, the other guy who came very bitter trying to the perspective just changed everything. So that may not completely define your situation, but just somehow learn to be mature enough to approach that situation early and have that conversation. Now, depending on how you go about it, it could just be the best move you may make. All right? It may not be about perspective. It may just be to bear yourself out, and the other person gets the opportunity to say how sorry they are. Because sometimes people are really good. All right? They may hurt so much that they hurt you that they don't even know how to approach you to apologize. In the case of Peter and Judas, Peter had the maturity, all right? Or let me not say maturity, the grace to have escaped the consequences of feeling so bitter or disappointed with himself. Now, whereas Judas goes to kill himself, Peter returned back to fishing. In fact, converted the entire disciples of Jesus back to fishing. And when Jesus resurrected and then he had to call them by the seaside, he took Peter by the side and restored him. Just somehow, if Judas had waited. So people who hurt you may also be hurting that they hurt you. And they may not even have the face to approach you. So give them the opportunity to have. I'm not saying just be the better person. No. I'm saying go deal with this for your own self. All right? So it's very important. And the Bible gave tips on how to confront people. It said approach them politely and request for a conversation to be had. And let them know what they did that you're uncomfortable about. And if they would not hear you, the Bible says look for a respected authority who both of you take as a superior and take that conversation before the person. He said if that person also would not listen to you, he said take it up to a body that all of you respect. Let's say if it's in a family and you approached a senior person in the family and the person also didn't listen, and then you extended it to the bigger family body and the person also didn't listen, the Bible said at this point you could tell yourself you've done everything. The Bible said as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Now when you have done all of that and nothing is coming out of it positively, he said at this point you can take the person to court, you can go lock the person up or something like that. Okay, but at least learn to make the move if it's something you cannot just overlook. And that's the second thing I want to talk about. You must realize that you're not too important. All right? Because all grief comes from deflated ego. Right? Every time we've ever felt pain was because we consider ourselves too important, and our importance that we gave ourselves was not given to us from the people we expected such recognitions to come from. So you must realize that you're not too special, you're not too important. All right? As a matter of fact, if any of us dies right now, the world will continue. The world never pauses because anybody died. Nobody is just too important. Literally. Just literally. So realizing that will bring it to a point where you don't give people too much opportunity to hurt you. Because you yourself, you don't even take yourself too seriously. So you'll be surprised if anyone takes you even too seriously. I'm not saying you shouldn't carry yourself with respect or expect some respect from people, but I'm saying don't put too much emphasis on whether they do what you expect them to do or not do what you expected them to do, right? It's very important, all right? And you know what I found out? Oftentimes when this is your approach to life, people come around real quick. People come around real quick, all right? The number 3, Now, you need to write this down. Like, pause the video, write this down. Okay? The best revenge is massive success, period. It is exceedingly difficult to move on when the person who hurt you is moving forward and your life is not moving forward. And it is exceedingly very easy to move on from a pain, from an experience, if despite what happened, few months, few weeks, few years down the line, if the records are checked, not necessarily that you're doing better than the person or not, but you were not where they left you. Now, this is not a matter of, okay, I'll show them. No, it's a place to keep your mind focused on what your primary assignment is at any point in time and make sure you're moving forward. Because the pain will be so miserably double if at any point in the future you come to encounter the people who betrayed you and your life is not measuring up. Now, it doesn't matter. You need extra dose of. It's the wrong place. I wanted to say something, but let me not say that. You need extra level of spiritual maturity to deal with pain at that point. All right. So I shared it with a friend years ago. He was kicked out from an organization, and it's an organization he had served with all his life and all his might and everything. Yes, he made a mistake, a very grave mistake, but it's also mistakes that come because you are doing the work you are sent to do. And when he was kicked out, he was so in pain, he was so disappointed, not just with the organization, but also with himself, feeling so pity. All of this. I called him, I sat in and I said, listen, the best revenge, whether you want to revenge yourself or revenge those who hurt you, is massive success. I don't know where that thing came out from, but as I said it, I saw the light just spark in his eyes. Today, he's doing amazing. He has a real estate company, the same organization that he moved out from. He founded his own organization, and he's blossoming so massively. He's married, he has kids, his life is sweet. And each time we meet, he tells me, like, that statement that day. I remember the place where we were standing. This was 2011 or 12 or 13, I don't remember. That was several years ago. And then we're just all young boys. Nothing really so much to say about life. But that statement turned his life around. And maybe it would for you. It doesn't matter what people do to you. You want to make sure that you don't take your eyes off your primary goal. The Bible says, guide your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. If they hit your leg, hold your heart. Stay focused. Keep doing what you are doing and keep doing it so well. Keep improving, keep getting better. Sometimes just excelling will heal you from the hurt people have put you through. And that's very important. All right. Now, let's get to the fourth. And this is the most important one. All right. It's the most important strategy I've learned on how to operate with people all the time. Whether they disappoint you or whether they betray you, it doesn't matter. If you master this strategy, I bet you will see yourself cruising through life. And this is what every super successful person you've seen around the world uses. Now, when I say that, I don't want to sound like textbook knowledge, but oftentimes when I begin to, I don't know how people live their lives, but as I live my life, every decade, I try to sit back and ask myself, what are all the things that are principles for me that I operate with as a person now? The things life have taught me, and I document them. And it's a book I'm compiling. I call it Serpentine Wisdom. All right. And yes, and this is one of them. Each one, if I find them out, I'll begin to check them. First of all, the scripture is my first place to check if a principle is true. If it fails from the Bible, then if I can't find a backup from the Bible, and I just mean consistency through scriptures from old to new, all of them, types and shadows and realities of scriptures, revelation part, logos part. If it conflicts, it's not a principle. It will always fail. All right. So I put it through scriptures and it passes that. Then I'll check through life to see authorities I respect and admire their success, and check if they've had similar experiences. Then because I also read a lot of biographies, just behind me here, I have a couple of books, and these are not like all my books. These are books that are on my radar per time. More than 40% of every material I read are biographies. Then, of course, because I'm a medical doctor, I like to do a lot of things on health and all, but biographies. So I can easily quickly pick references. I check Julius Caesar, I check Alexander the Great, I check people who have built great companies, Steve Jobs. I check all of this. I see, have they gone through things like that? This was what Steve Jobs went through when he was sent off from Apple that he built. And when he set himself in the right way, it wasn't long. Those things came back to him. So I just try to whet your appetite, okay? Now let's get to it. You must understand, I mentioned it earlier as we were talking, you can't expect so much from people, all right? Because all disappointment comes from failed expectations. When you expect things from people and they don't give it to you, that's when you get disappointed. So learn to have relationship with people with zero expectation. Because literally, like I mentioned in the scriptures, nowhere did God tell you if you do good to people, they'll do good to you. So I've learned over time, as I study through history and documenting processes of leadership I've experienced over time, you must learn to build relationship in a way that you are needed and not in a way that you expect people to reward you or to pay you back. The only person God expects us to expect the reward from is God. He said that God will not forget your labor of love. It says, do not be weary in well-doing, for in good time, right? The other scripture said that he is a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. Only on God does the scripture recommend that we should have expectation for return on any investment in the relationship. Now, that doesn't mean that if you do good to people, that they often won't do good back to you. But if you do good to people expecting that such things will happen, you've created a room for you to actually be in perpetual misery. As a matter of fact, the Bible says when you do this, your left hand shouldn't know what your right hand did. In essence, do it to a point where you are not even trying to recognize you did something. How much more for even people to have such recognitions to come back to you, all right? If your reward system comes from if your validation and your reward system comes from people, then you won't make too much progress in life, right? You'll find yourself consistently being disappointed, all right? So learn to build relationship in such a way that you are needed, not that people need to give you back a favor, because they'll give you favor to the extent that they're expecting something else from you. But when you build yourself to a point where you are the only one that can do these things when delivery is what is required, right? Someone said, I don't just want to be the best at what I do. I want to be the only one that does what I do, right? You want to be that good. Now, what brought Joseph out from the prison is not because the guy remembered him and felt like recommending him. The guy just got to the palace for 2 years, forgot about David, because he has a lot of problems on his own hands already, trying to regain back the favor of the king. How would he be telling the king of another prisoner who supposedly the king has never even heard about? All right. So he's trying to deal with his own life, his own family, and trying to secure his own place again. The only thing that brought Joseph out of that place was because circumstances presented it in a way that he was needed. So when I looked through scriptures and I looked through history, I realized that that is the key. That's the strategy of every successful individual in their relationship with people. The Bible said that Jesus did not commit himself to men because he knew the heart of men. So that's the wisdom in building relationship. All right. And that's how to function in a multi-dimensional environment. All right. Because there's an environment where what you do determines the outcome. All right. But then there's an environment where there's a second person and what you do is no longer enough to determine an outcome. The dynamics have changed. But what is even more complex is when there's a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh person, and you are now in a complex relational setting, in a very multi-dimensional environment. At this point, The fastest do not win the race. The smartest are not the best to be favored. The most beautiful are not the ones who are chosen. The life becomes very dynamic. And since we're talking about this already, why not watch this video I made that discusses on how to operate in a multi-dimensional environment. It will give you the secret of operating in such a way that it doesn't matter whether people like you, they don't like you, whether people think they want to favor you or they don't want to favor you, they will always find themselves coming back to you. All right, so that's the video here, and get to it.